The offering was where you went when your pack wanted to be rid of you. And as Carenza stood among the women presented like gifts to the North Alpha King, she knew exactly why she was here. Not to honor their pack, not to forge an alliance, but to disappear. She kept her head bowed, her body wrapped in layers of dark fabric despite the summer heat. Every inch of skin covered, every scar hidden. The other women wore silks and jewels, bearing shoulders and throats, hoping to catch a king's eye. Carenza only hoped to survive the night without collapsing. The whispers had already started. Why is that one dressed like she's attending a funeral? She looks half dead already. They weren't wrong. Beneath the fabric, her body told a story no one was meant to read. The bruises that never healed. The veins that ran black beneath her skin. The scars that multiplied with every passing moon. For 7 years, Carenza had carried her pack's suffering in her flesh. Their sickness became her sickness. Their pain became her pain. Their secrets lived in the marks that covered her from throat to ankle, and now they'd sent her here to die quietly, far from home. She would not be chosen. She was too weak, too broken, and too strange. Then the North Alpha King walked into the hall. Severin of Frostmir, the wolf who walks alone. Ruthless, powerful, cold as the northern winds that bore his name. He moved past daughters of high alphas without a glance, past beauties who'd prepared for months, past every worthy candidate, and stopped directly in front of her. "This one," he said. The air left Carenza's lungs. She didn't understand his choice, not until he made his terms clear. He would take her north, protect her, provide for her pack, but under one condition. He would never truly claim her as his mate. What Carenza didn't know was that protecting her pack's secret had slowly been killing her. And the North Alpha King was dying too. The great hall of Ashenford had been transformed for the offering. Silk banners hung from ancient rafters, candles flickered in iron chandeliers. The stone floor had been scrubbed until it gleamed, erasing years of neglect in a single desperate night. All to impress a king who hadn't visited the southern territories in over a decade. Carenza stood at the end of the line, positioned as far from the entrance as possible. This was deliberate. Pack Alpha Dagny had made that clear. Stay in the back. Stay quiet. Don't embarrass us. As if Carenza had ever done anything but stay quiet. She counted 11 other women arranged before her. Daughters of beta families, cousins of warriors, a few omegas with exceptional beauty. All of them young, healthy, glowing with vitality. And then there was her. 23 years old and already bent like a woman of 60. Her hands trembled if she didn't clasp them together. Her bones ached constantly. Some days she couldn't walk without assistance. Burden bearer, her mother had called her, in those final weeks before the weight of the pack's suffering had killed her too. It's what we are, what we do. The pack survives because we absorb what would destroy them. Carenza had been 16 when she inherited the role. 16 when she first felt another's pain flood into her veins like poison. 16 when the first scar appeared on her collarbone, a silver line that hadn't come from any wound. Now her body was a map of 7 years of service. Every plague she'd pulled from fevered children, every injury she'd drawn from wounded warriors, every grief she'd siphoned from widows who couldn't bear to go on. The pack thrived. Carenza deteriorated, and no one spoke of it. Ever. The king approaches. The hall fell silent. Even the candle flames seemed to still. Carenza felt him before she saw him. A presence like a winter storm rolling down from the mountains. Power so immense it pressed against her chest, made her lungs struggle for air. The doors opened. Severin of Frostmir entered alone. No entourage, no advisors, no guards, just a single man who moved like he'd never once feared anything in his existence. He was tall, taller than any alpha she'd ever seen, with shoulders broad enough to block out the torchlight behind him. His hair was dark, nearly black, falling past his jaw in waves that looked like they'd never been tamed. His eyes were the color of a frozen lake, pale gray with depths that promised nothing warm lived beneath. Beautiful wasn't the right word. Beautiful implied softness. There was nothing soft about the North Alpha King. He was carved from ice and iron, every angle sharp, every line unforgiving. The women before her straightened, chests lifted, chins tilted to display elegant throats. Carenza only shrank further into her wrappings. Pack Alpha Dagny stepped forward, all false warmth and calculated smiles. Your Majesty, Thornvale Pack is honored beyond words. Please allow me to present our finest. I'll see them myself. The king's voice cut through her speech like a blade through silk. Deep, cold, utterly devoid of interest. He began walking. The first woman, a beta's daughter with copper hair and wide green eyes, held her breath as he paused before her. He studied her for exactly 3 seconds, then moved on. Carenza watched his shadow grow longer on the floor as he approached her end of the line. Her pulse hammered against ribs that had grown too prominent over the years. He won't even look at me, she told herself. This will be over, and Dagny will send me back to the cellar room where I belong. The king passed the 10th woman. The 11th woman, a stunning Omega with silver blonde hair, gave him her most radiant smile. He didn't even pause, and then he was standing in front of Carenza. She kept her eyes fixed on his boots. Black leather, well-worn, practical rather than ornate. The silence stretched. Look up, the king said. Slowly, reluctantly, she raised her head. His eyes met hers through the shadow of her hood, pale gray locked onto dark amber, and something shifted in his expression, something that looked almost like recognition, though they'd never met. His nostrils flared slightly. He was scenting her. You're ill, he observed. Yes, Your Majesty. Dying? She should have lied. Instead, she said, eventually, yes. Gasps rippled through the hall. Dagny made a strangled sound of horror. The North Alpha King tilted his head, studying her like a puzzle he intended to solve. And yet you came here anyway, he said softly, knowing you'd likely be rejected. I came because I was sent, Your Majesty. I've never had the luxury of choosing my own fate. Something shifted in his frozen expression. Not warmth, exactly, but interest. He turned to face Dagny. This one, the North Alpha King announced. I'll take her. Chaos erupted. The journey north took 4 days. Carenza spent most of it in a carriage that moved too quickly over rough terrain, her body jostled and aching, her mind racing with questions she couldn't answer. Why had he chosen her? What possible use could the most powerful alpha in the realm have for a dying woman? The king rode ahead on a massive black stallion, never once glancing back. She saw him only in glimpses through the window. The rigid line of his shoulders, the strange, unnerving stillness he carried even in motion. He hadn't spoken to her since the offering. On the 3rd night, they stopped at an outpost. Carenza was escorted to a small room when a woman entered. Middle-aged, stern-faced, with gray-streaked hair pulled back in a severe knot. I'm Hedienne, she announced, head of the king's household. You'll be examined before you're presented to him again. Ice flooded Carenza's veins. Examined? Standard procedure for all potential mates. No. The word came out sharp. I cannot be examined. His Majesty accepted me as I am. Hedienne studied her with shrewd eyes. The king said you'd refuse. He also said to respect your wishes. She paused. I've served him for 20 years. He's never once adjusted his requirements for anyone. She left without another word. They reached Frostmir on the 4th day. The castle rose from the mountains like a shard of ice, all pale stone and sharp towers piercing a colorless sky. Beautiful in the way a blade was beautiful. Cold. Lethal. Magnificent. Guards escorted her through corridors that seemed endless. The air was different here. Cleaner. Colder. Every breath felt like drinking winter. They stopped before a massive door carved with wolves mid-hunt. "The king will see you now, my lady." Carenza stepped inside. The room was a study, lined with books and maps. A fire burned in a hearth large enough to stand in, yet the warmth barely reached the center of the space. And there, standing by the window, was Severin. He didn't turn immediately. "Close the door," he said. She did. He turned then, and she felt the full weight of his attention. Those pale eyes moved over her slowly, assessing. "You survived the journey." "Yes, Your Majesty." "Sit." He gestured to a chair near the fire. "You look ready to collapse." She crossed the room on unsteady legs and sank into the offered chair. The warmth from the flames was almost painful against her perpetually cold skin. Severin remained standing. "I've arranged for quarters near my own," he said. "You'll have private staff, blind servants who won't look at you directly if that's what you prefer." "Your Majesty is generous." "I'm practical." He moved to his desk. "I need a mate. You need protection. This arrangement serves both purposes." "But you don't even know me. You don't know what's wrong with me." "I don't need to know." The statement stopped her cold. "Whatever burden you carry, whatever secret you're protecting, it's yours to keep. All I require is your presence." "Why choose me? You could have had anyone." "They were boring." He met her eyes. "Every single one looked at me and saw a crown, a title, power to be wielded. They didn't see me at all." "And I did?" "You saw a man who frightened you." A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. There and gone. "That's more honest than anything those other women offered." He crossed to a second chair near the fire and sat, closer to her now than he'd ever been. The cold that radiated from him was palpable, unnatural. Alphas ran hot. Everyone knew that. But Severin felt like winter given flesh. "Here are my terms," he said. "You will be my mate in name and status. You will have access to everything that title provides. Your pack will receive resources, supplies, whatever they need. And in exchange, your presence, nothing more. We will not share a bed. The mating bond will remain incomplete. I will never claim you fully." "You're offering me everything and asking for nothing?" "I'm offering you safety and asking for discretion." A flash of something raw passed through his gaze. "Because a hollow bond is all I can survive." Before she could ask what that meant, he stood abruptly. "My steward will show you to your chambers. We'll speak again tomorrow." He was almost to the door when she called out, "Your Majesty, at the offering, when you scented me, what did you smell?" Silence. Long. Heavy. Then, quietly, "Peace." The word hung in the air as he left, and Carenza sat by the fire, trembling, because no one had ever smelled peace on her before. Only pain. 3 days passed in a blur of rest and confusion. Carenza's chambers were larger than the entire dwelling she'd shared with 6 other packmates in Thornvale. A canopied bed, with furs thick enough to drown in. Windows overlooking snow-capped peaks. A private bathing room with water that ran hot at any hour. And the servants. The king had been true to his word. The 3 women assigned to her were all blind, their eyes clouded from birth. They moved with practiced grace, bathing her carefully, dressing her in soft fabrics, and asking no questions about the scars their fingers surely felt. On the 3rd morning, a summons came. The treaty announcement would take place before the gathered court. Carenza dressed carefully, layering fabric until every inch of marked skin was hidden. The gown Severin had provided was beautiful, deep burgundy velvet with long sleeves and a high collar. It concealed everything. The great hall of Frostmir was even more imposing than Ashenford's. Vaulted ceilings disappeared into shadow. Pillars of white stone rose like frozen trees. And everywhere, wolves. Carvings and tapestries and banners celebrating the wolves who had ruled this territory for centuries. Nobles filled the space, their eyes tracking Carenza as she walked toward the raised platform where Severin waited. He wore black, as always. His crown was a simple band of dark iron, almost invisible against his hair. He looked like a king who'd won his throne through blood rather than birthright. Because he had. The whispers started as she approached. That's her? She looked sickly. What was he thinking? Carenza kept her eyes forward, her chin level. She'd survived worse than court gossip. She reached the platform and curtsied. Your Majesty, rise. Severin's voice silenced the whispers. He extended his hand. She took it. His skin was cold, so cold, even through her glove. He turned to address the court. Lords and ladies of the North, I present Carenza of Thornvale Pack. She will become my mate and your queen. The disapproval was palpable. Cold stares, thinned lips, poorly concealed sneers. One lord, an older alpha with a gray beard, stepped forward. Your Majesty, forgive my bluntness. This alliance seems unbalanced. Thornvale offers nothing of strategic value. Severin's expression didn't change. Are you questioning my judgment, Lord Brennick? I'm questioning the wisdom of taking a mate who appears more burden than benefit. Several courtiers snickered. Heat flooded Carenza's cheeks, but before she could respond, Severin spoke. Lady Carenza, perhaps you could reassure Lord Brennick. She understood. This was a test. Carenza turned to face the Lord directly. My lord, I've survived things that would have killed wolves twice my size. I've endured pain that would have broken warriors. I've carried burdens that would have crushed men like you beneath their weight. She stepped closer. I may look fragile, but I promise you I am the last thing you should underestimate. Silence crashed over the hall. Well spoken. A note of approval colored Severin's voice. The ceremony will take place in 5 days. You're all dismissed. The court dispersed slowly. Severin escorted her through a private corridor, away from prying eyes. They walked in silence until they reached a small courtyard, open to the gray sky. And there, waiting by a frozen fountain, stood a figure Carenza recognized. Her stomach plummeted. Meron, her younger brother. The boy she'd shielded from the truth for 7 years. He looked older, harder. The softness she remembered had been replaced by the lean wariness of a warrior. Carenza. His voice was flat. I came to deliver a message. Severin tensed beside her. You're a long way from Thornvale. Alpha Dagny sent me. Marin didn't look at the king. His eyes were fixed on his sister. She wanted to congratulate you on your good fortune and to remind you of your obligations. The hidden meaning was clear. Remember what you are. Remember what you owe us. She also wanted me to give you this. He pulled out a carved bone pendant on a leather cord, their mother's necklace. He pressed it into her palm. As his fingers brushed hers, he leaned close, his whisper barely audible. She knows you haven't been absorbing from this distance. The pack is getting sick again. If you don't return to your duties, she'll tell your king exactly what you've been hiding. He pulled back, and Carenza saw something in his eyes. Conflict, perhaps guilt, before a mask slammed back into place. Safe travels, sister. Then he was gone. Carenza stood frozen, the pendant biting into her palm. Carenza. Severin's voice came from far away. What did he say to you? Nothing, Your Majesty. Just family matters. Severin studied her for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He removed his glove and pressed his bare palm against her cheek. His skin was ice, colder than anything living should be. But beneath the cold, she felt something else. A tremor. A flicker. like something inside him was fighting to break free. "You're lying," he said quietly, "but I won't force the truth from you." His thumb brushed her cheekbone, and she saw his eyes flicker, the gray briefly swallowed by something gold and wild. His wolf. She'd glimpsed his wolf, just for an instant. And it was dying. Severin pulled his hand back sharply, as if he'd revealed too much. "Return to your chambers. Rest. The ceremony will require your strength." He left her standing in the frozen courtyard, her brother's warning ringing in her ears and a new grim knowledge taking root. The North Alpha King was hiding something too, and whatever was killing him was far worse than what was killing her. The ceremony took place at midnight. Carenza had expected something grand, a cathedral filled with witnesses, elaborate rituals. Instead, Severin led her to a small chapel carved into the mountainside behind the castle. Ancient, private, lit by nothing but moonlight streaming through a single arched window. "No audience," he explained. "The public ceremony was for the court. This is for us." A priest waited by the altar, old and weathered, his eyes kind. He spoke the sacred words in the old tongue. Carenza understood only fragments, but the meaning was clear. Bond, protect, endure. When the priest asked for their vows, Severin spoke first. I take you as my mate. I offer you my name, my protection, my territory. What is mine becomes yours. Your enemies become my enemies. Your burdens become my burdens." The last words made Carenza flinch. If only he knew. "And I take you as my mate," she recited, her voice barely above a whisper. "I offer you my loyalty, my presence, my truth." "Liar." Something hissed inside her. "The claiming," the priest said gently. "You must exchange marks to seal the bond." Carenza's chest tightened. The mark. She'd have to bare her neck. He'd see the scars. "We discussed this," Severin said quietly. "A partial bond will suffice." He extended his hand, palm up, wrist to wrist. Older, less common, but recognized. Relief washed through her. "You've thought of everything. I've had time to plan, and reasons to avoid a full bond myself." He removed his glove. His wrist was bare in the moonlight. But as Carenza looked closer, she saw something else. Frost patterns. Delicate, crystalline lines spreading from his pulse point toward his forearm. They looked like ice forming on a window. Beautiful and deeply wrong. "Your Majesty." "The mark," he interrupted. "Quickly." Carenza pushed up her sleeve. Her own wrist was a map of thin silver scars, but in the dim light, they could pass for old injuries. Severin's cold fingers wrapped around her forearm. On 3. 1. 2. His teeth sank into her wrist. Pain flared bright and sharp, but beneath it, something else. A pulling sensation, as if threads were being drawn from her chest and woven into his. She bit down on his wrist in return. His blood was cold. Not copper warmth, but something that tasted like winter itself. Like frost and iron and the deep silence of frozen lakes. And then she felt it. His wolf. Not the powerful presence she'd expected from an alpha king. Instead, she sensed something wounded, trapped. A great beast prowling behind walls of ice, growing weaker with every passing moment. "Help me," it seemed to cry. I'm dying, and he won't let me out." Carenza gasped and pulled back. Severin released her immediately, his expression shuddered. "It's done." She stared at him. "Your wolf is none of your concern?" The priest pronounced them mated. Severin escorted her back to the castle in silence. At the door to her chambers, he paused. "You felt something." Not a question. She should tell him. Should describe the dying wolf she'd sensed beneath his skin. "I felt cold." "Nothing else?" "Nothing else, Your Majesty." He studied her. Then, almost reluctantly, He lifted her bandaged wrist and pressed his lips to the fabric. "Rest well, wife." He disappeared down the corridor before she could respond. Carenza stood alone, her wrist tingling, her mind racing. His wolf was dying. Something was killing the North Alpha King from the inside, freezing him piece by piece. And somehow, impossibly, her presence seemed to slow it down. She had no answers, only the grim knowledge that she and the North Alpha King were both dying, and neither of them could save the other. He came the next night, and the night after that. Within a week, Severin's visits had become the axis around which Carenza's days revolved. They talked for hours, about everything and nothing. His childhood before his mother Isolde's death, her memories of Thornvale before she became the burden bearer. And there were touches now, small ones. His hand finding hers across the table, her fingers brushing his jaw when she noticed frost spreading across his skin. The way he'd lean close to scent her hair, breathing deep like a man drowning who'd finally found air. "You're warmer tonight," she observed one evening, 3 weeks into their strange courtship. Severin looked down at his hands. The frost patterns had receded. "You're good for me. I'm not doing anything. You're here. That's enough." But it wasn't enough for Carenza. Not anymore. The partial bond pulsed constantly now. She knew when he was anxious, when he was tired, when his wolf was stirring. And he seemed to sense her moods just as clearly, which meant she was running out of time to hide. The sickness had started again in Thornvale. Marin sent word. A fever spreading through the pups, 3 warriors wounded, an elder whose heart was failing. The pack needed their burden bearer. It manifested in small ways. The black veins on her arms grew darker. The scars on her back began to ache. Some mornings she woke so exhausted she could barely rise. Dagny's patience was running out. "Come home, or I tell him everything." 1 week. On the 4th night, Severin arrived earlier than usual. "Cancel your evening plans. We're going somewhere." "Where?" "Trust me." He led her through corridors she'd never explored, down staircases spiraling deep into the mountain. The air grew warmer. Steam rose from cracks in the stone. They emerged into a cavern that stole her breath. Hot springs, pools carved into rock, glowing blue-green in bioluminescent light. Heat wrapped around her like an embrace. "I discovered this place when I was 7, Severin said. "My hiding spot. The only place my uncle couldn't find me." He was sharing something precious. Carenza understood the gift. "It's beautiful. I've never brought anyone here before." In the ethereal light, he looked less like a king and more like the wounded boy he'd once been. "Swim with me." Swimming would mean removing her clothes, revealing the scars. "I can't. The light is dim. The water will conceal most things, and I can close my eyes if you need me to." She should refuse. "Turn around." He obeyed. Carenza's hands trembled as she shed her clothes. Layer by layer she revealed what had been her shame. The black veins crawling up her arms, the silver scars crisscrossing her torso. She walked into the water. The heat enveloped her. Soothing aches she'd forgotten existed. "You can turn around now." Severin turned. For a moment he simply looked at her. Then he began removing his own clothes. His body was a warrior's body, but it was also marked. Frost patterns covered his chest and shoulders like frozen lightning. Beautiful and terrible. He entered the water and moved toward her. "We match," he said quietly. "Our marks. We're both being consumed by something." Her eyes burned. "You can see mine?" I chose not to look away. She should feel exposed. Instead, she felt seen. "My mother," she heard herself say. "She was a burden bearer before me. We absorb the suffering of our pack. Their sickness. Their pain. We take it into ourselves so they can survive." She told him everything. The inheritance at 16. The scars that multiplied. Dagny's exploitation. Her mother's death from the weight of it. "This is 7 years of suffering," she said, raising her arm above the water. 7 years of keeping my pack healthy while my own body deteriorates. Severin crossed the distance between them. His hands cupped her face, cold against her heated skin. "She sent you away to die?" "She sent me to disappear." She was wrong. His voice shook. "You're not a liability. You're a miracle." "Severin, you've spent 7 years taking everyone else's pain, and you think that makes you broken?" His forehead pressed against hers. "Every night I spend with you, my wolf grows stronger. You're not dying, Carenza. You're keeping me alive." She sobbed then. Actually sobbed, the sound echoing off the cavern walls. Severin held her through it. When the tears finally stopped, she was pressed against his chest, her ear over his heart. "Stay with me," he whispered. "Not as a contract. Because I need you. Because my wolf needs you. Because I'm falling in love with you." Her pulse stuttered. "Don't say that. Don't love me. You'll only get hurt." But what came out was different entirely. "I'm falling in love with you too." Severin pulled back to look at her. His eyes were bright, desperate, and hopeful. And then he kissed her. Cold lips met heated ones, and the contrast was electric. She gasped into his mouth, and he pulled her closer until she couldn't tell where she ended and he began. The bond between them pulsed, strengthened. What had been a thread became a rope, then a chain, then something stronger still. They didn't leave the springs until dawn. 3 months passed like a dream. Carenza moved into Severin's chambers. They slept tangled together every night, his cold skin against her warmth, their wolves circling each other in contented recognition. The court whispered about the change in their king, how he smiled now when his mate entered a room. The frost patterns on his body had retreated significantly. His wolf prowled closer to the surface than it had in years. Some mornings, Carenza woke to find his eyes golden instead of gray. She'd stopped hiding her scars. Severin kissed each one, tracing the silver lines with reverent fingers. "Battle marks," he called them, "proof of how strong you are." The messages from Thornvale continued. Dagny's threats grew more desperate, but Severin had increased security around the castle, and Carenza felt safe for the first time in her life. Safe and loved. One morning, she woke before dawn, her stomach churning. She barely made it to the basin before she was sick. Severin was beside her instantly, holding her hair back. "Carenza? What's wrong?" The healer confirmed it that afternoon. "Congratulations, Your Majesty. You're carrying the king's heir." She told Severin that evening. They were in their chambers, the fire burning low, his arms wrapped around her. Their mingled scents, her warmth like summer meadows, his frost like pine and cold stone, had become a single fragrance over these months. The scent of home. "I'm pregnant." He went completely still. "You're certain?" The healer confirmed it. His hand moved to her stomach with reverent wonder. "Our child," he breathed. "Severin, what if they inherit? Then we'll love them anyway. Whatever gifts or curses they carry, they'll be protected. They'll never suffer alone the way you did." Tears carved warm trails down her face. Happy tears. "I love you," she whispered. Severin pulled her close. His scent deepened, wrapping around her like a promise. "I love you too, more than I ever thought I could love anything. You've saved me, Carenza. You've saved me too." They held each other in the firelight, and for one perfect moment, everything was exactly as it should be. Then Severin stiffened. His scent changed instantly, the warm pine turning sharp, acrid, and wrong. "What is it?" His face had gone white, bloodless. His hand flew to his chest. "Severin!" He tried to speak, but no words came out. His eyes rolled back. His body convulsed once, violently, and then he collapsed. Carenza screamed. She caught him before he hit the floor. His skin was ice, colder than she'd ever felt it, frost spreading visibly across his chest and throat. His scent was disappearing, fading into something sterile and frozen, like a lake in deep winter. "Help!" she screamed. "Someone help me!" Guards burst through the door. Healers were summoned. The next hours blurred into chaos, Carenza kneeling beside the bed, watching the frost consume more of his body. "What's happening to him?" she demanded. The head healer, an ancient woman with knowing eyes, looked at her with pity. "The curse," she said quietly. "On his bloodline, it's been activated." "What curse?" "The first Alpha King of Frostmir made a bargain with a dark witch. Power in exchange for a price. Every king since has carried a piece of that curse. Their wolves would slowly freeze unless they found a true mate bond. But even then, there's a condition." "What condition?" "The curse fully activates when the king falls in love. Truly in love. The very thing that could save his wolf triggers its final destruction." "No." "You're saying that because he loves me?" "The curse recognized a true bond. His love for you is killing him." Carenza stared down at Severin's frozen face. The man she loved. The father of her child. Dying because he'd made the mistake of loving her back. There has to be a cure. The only thing that can break a bloodline curse is sacrifice. Equivalent exchange. A life for a life. Carenza's mind raced. Her hand moved to her stomach. No, she would never sacrifice her child. But there was another option. She was a burden bearer. She absorbed suffering. What if she could absorb a curse? "Leave us," she said. The healers retreated. Carenza pressed her palm against Severin's frozen chest. Her gift stirred, recognizing suffering, reaching for it instinctively. "I can take it," she whispered. "I can take the curse into myself." But the curse was ancient. Absorbing it would consume her entirely, kill her faster than any normal burden, and the baby would die too. She needed a third way. Dagny, the pack alpha who had used her for 7 years, who had once been a witch's apprentice. Carenza leaned down and pressed her lips to Severin's frozen forehead. "Hold on, I'm going to save you, I promise." Then she stood, wrapped her cloak around her shoulders, and walked out into the night. The ride to Thornvale took 2 days, half the time it had taken in the carriage. Carenza pushed her horse beyond reason, trading for fresh mounts at every outpost, barely stopping to breathe. Every hour she delayed was another hour of frost spreading across Severin's body. The bond pulsed weakly. He was alive, but fading. Thornvale looked smaller than she remembered. The wooden palisade that had seemed imposing in her childhood now appeared weathered, fragile. The guards recognized her immediately. "Lady Carenza, you're alive." "Barely. Where is Dagny?" "The Great Hall, my lady, but—" Carenza was already walking. The doors to the Great Hall burst open at her approach. Dagny sat on the Alpha's throne. Beautiful in the way predators were beautiful. Her silver hair was piled high. Her pale blue eyes watched with mild interest, cold eyes that had always unsettled Carenza, though she'd never understood why until now. "Little burden bearer, I heard rumors you'd become a queen. I need answers. About the curse on the Frostmir line." A shadow crossed Dagny's expression. "I'm sure I don't know what you mean." "Don't lie to me. I know you were a witch's apprentice. I know you sent me to the North Alpha King deliberately." Silence. Then, everyone out. The hall emptied. Only Carenza remained. "Clever girl." Dagny descended the dais. "I always knew you were smarter than your mother." She never questioned. "Just absorbed and absorbed until there was nothing left. You killed her." "Of course." She was becoming difficult, asking questions about where all that absorbed suffering actually went. Carenza's blood turned to ice. Where does it go? Did you really think the suffering just disappeared? Dagny circled her slowly. Burden bearers are vessels. The suffering you collect becomes power. Power for what? For me. This close, Carenza saw what she'd never noticed. Dagny's skin was too smooth. Her movements too fluid. She looked 40. She was over 100 years old. My mentor taught me well. She was the witch who cursed the Frostmir line. Oh, the first king thought it was a bargain. Power in exchange for emotional control. He didn't realize until too late that he'd been tricked. Pride colored Dagny's voice. She understood that suffering is the purest form of energy. Understanding crashed over Carenza. The burden bearers. You've been harvesting the suffering we absorb. For generations. Your grandmother. Your mother. You. All of you. Concentrating pain until I could extract it. But why send me to Severin? Because the curse was weakening. The last 3 Frostmir kings didn't fall in love. Their wolves were too frozen. Without the curse fully activating, I wasn't getting what I needed. Dagny's pale eyes gleamed. When the curse kills your precious king, the grief you'll absorb will sustain me for another century. Carenza couldn't breathe. Everything she'd believed, all of it built on lies. No, I won't let you use me. You don't have a choice. Dagny's hand shot out, gripping her wrist. The bond between us was forged when you were 16. I own you. Carenza felt it then. A tether she'd never noticed, running from her core to Dagny. Now, you're going to watch your mate die, and give me everything. No. The voice came from the doorway. Both women turned. Standing at the entrance, a sword in his hand, was Maron. Let her go, Carenza's brother commanded. Dagny laughed. The loyal pup finally shows his teeth. I know what you are, Dagny. The records you thought you'd destroyed? I found copies. Letters from your mentor. Journals detailing everything. Dagny's smile vanished. I know you killed our mother. I know you manufactured that plague. I know everything. Then you know you should be afraid. Maybe. But you've never faced 2 of us at once. Maron stopped beside his sister. I'm sorry, he said, voice cracking, for delivering that message. Dagny was watching everything. I had to play along until I had enough proof. Something broke open in Carenza's chest, the family she'd thought she'd lost. How touching. Dagny raised her hand. A family reunion. Pain erupted through Carenza's body, every wound she'd ever absorbed flaring to life at once. She screamed. Maron lunged. Dagny flicked her wrist and he flew backward, slamming into a pillar. He crumpled, unconscious. Now! Dagny stalked forward. Give me what's mine. The pull intensified. Carenza felt herself being emptied, and with it, she felt the baby. No. No! The word tore from her throat. Something deep inside Carenza shattered. The tether Dagny had placed on her 16 years ago exploded outward. Power flooded through her. 7 years of accumulated suffering that had been waiting, building, becoming something more. Dagny stumbled back. What? How? You were wrong about one thing. Carenza rose to her feet. Her veins burned white-hot. The suffering passes through you, but the power was always mine. She raised her hand. Every burden she'd ever absorbed crystallized into pure energy. It blazed around her like white fire, illuminating the hall. The curse, without me maintaining it. The curse dies with your connection to it. Carenza released everything. The energy struck Dagny like a physical blow. The alpha screamed, her preserved youth cracking, lines carved into her face. Her silver hair turned white, then fell out entirely. Centuries caught up with her in seconds. Dagny collapsed. Ancient, withered. My mentor warned me, she gasped. Burden bearers who learn to release instead of absorb become something else entirely. What? A final terrible smile. Curse breakers. Her eyes went blank. Her chest stilled. Dagny was dead. Carenza stood in silence, her body humming with residual power. The scars on her skin had faded to pale silver. The black veins were gone. And somewhere, hundreds of miles north, the bond with Severin pulsed. He was alive. Maron. She rushed to her brother. Wake up. Did we win? He mumbled. We won. But I have to go. Go. Maron gripped her hand. I'll handle things here. Carenza kissed his forehead. I'll send for you. Your family. You'll always have a place with us. Then she ran. She rode through the night and the day and the night again. The bond pulsed stronger with every mile. He was alive. Weak, but alive. She could feel his wolf reaching for her. Hold on, I'm coming. Hurry. She reached Frostmir at dawn on the third day. The castle gates opened before she reached them. Servants ran alongside her horse shouting directions she didn't need. The door to their chambers burst open at her touch. Severin lay in their bed pale but breathing. The frost was gone. His skin had color. And when his eyes opened, they were gold. Pure, bright gold. His wolf. You did it. His voice was rough. I felt the curse shatter. Carenza fell into his arms. He held her, buried his face in her hair. She felt him shaking. Felt his wolf overwhelming her with relief and love and desperate gratitude. I thought I'd lost you, he whispered. Never. She told him everything. Dagny, the burden bearers, the harvesting, the confrontation. When she finished, his expression settled on wonder. You released 7 years of absorbed suffering. That should have killed you. I had something to live for. She touched her stomach. Our child is going to be fine. Severin pulled her down beside him, tucking her against his chest. He was warm now. Actually warm, for the first time since she'd known him. I love you, he said. So much it terrifies me. It doesn't trigger the curse anymore. I know. He laughed, wet with tears. For the first time in my life, there's no shadow waiting. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. Maron sent reports from Thornvale, the pack reeling from revelations, the elders reorganizing. He'd taken temporary leadership. Carenza returned once, as Queen of the North, and spoke the truth about everything. The pack listened. When she finished, an elder rose. What do you want from us, Your Majesty? Healing. If any burden-bearer children are born to this pack, they'll have a choice. They'll learn to use their gift properly. No more secrets. No more exploitation. Maron stepped forward. As interim alpha, I accept these terms and formally request alliance with Frostmir. Their daughter was born on the first day of autumn. They named her Isolde, after Severin's mother, the woman he'd lost too young, whose memory he'd finally shared with Carenza during those long nights in the hot springs. Their daughter had her father's dark hair and her mother's amber eyes, and she screamed with lungs that promised she'd inherited both their stubbornness. Maron arrived 3 days later. Your mother would have loved her, he said quietly, holding his niece. She's here with us. I feel her sometimes, when I use my gift. Later, after Maron had retired and Isolde was sleeping, Carenza stood by the window, watching snow fall. Severin came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. What are you thinking? About beginnings. A year ago, I stood at the offering, convinced I was going to die. And now? Now I'm a queen, a mother, a curse breaker, and the mate of a man who chose me when no one else would. Best decision I ever made. He kissed her temple. I thought I was choosing someone safe. Instead, I chose the woman who would change everything. You saved me too. I was a burden waiting to be discarded. You saw something else. I saw my future. She turned in his arms. I love you. I love you too, more than winter loves the spring that follows it. Outside, snow fell softly on Frostmir. Inside a fire crackled. A baby slept. And two wolves who had once walked alone finally rested, complete in each other's arms. The burden bearer, who had suffered in silence to protect her pack's secret, and the North Alpha King who had discovered the truth and loved her all the more for it.